Hello and welcome to World News on the Hour here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. At least 18 people were killed and more than 60 injured in a Russian strike on Kryvyi Rih on Friday night. 9 children were identified among the dead. An Iskander-M ballistic missile hit a residential neighborhood, setting several buildings on fire and causing severe damage. More than 40 people, including a 3-month-old infant, remain hospitalized. Shortly after the attack, the Russian Defense Ministry released a statement claiming that up to 85 Ukrainian and foreign officers had been killed in the strike. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attack on his Telegram channel, expressing condolences to the families of the victims.
My condolences to their families and loved ones. Many others have been injured and buildings have been damaged. The missile struck an area right next to residential buildings, hitting a children's playground and ordinary streets. A ceasefire could have already been reached, but Putin rejected it. Since March the 11th, Moscow has refused to agree to a ceasefire. They need this war, and it is clear that Russia will not be forced into peace through mere conversations or waiting. I'm grateful to everyone in the world who helps make diplomacy and the efforts for a just peace effective. We count on America, Europe and other partners on their ability to put pressure on the real cause of this war, Russia's desire to destroy and kill.
The U.S. intends to wait and see whether Russia is serious about peace or not, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said during a press conference in Brussels. Rubio visited Belgium to participate in a 2-day NATO foreign ministers meeting, which wrapped up on Friday.
We're going to wait and see. The Russians know our position in terms of wanting to end the war. And we will know from their answers very soon whether they are serious about proceeding with real peace or whether this is a delay tactic. It's a delay tactic. The president's not interested in that. If this is dragging things out, President Trump's not going to fall into the trap of endless negotiations about negotiations. We will know soon enough whether or not Russia's serious about peace. If they are, that'll be great. Then we can move towards peace. If they're not, then we'll have to reevaluate where we stand and what we do moving forward about it. But we'll be in no different a position than we are today, or we were when he took office. He wanted to know early in his administration, is peace possible? We're testing to see if the Russians are interested in peace. Their actions, not their words, their actions will determine whether they're serious or not. And we intend to find that out sooner rather than later.
More F-16 fighter jets are heading to Ukraine, according to U.S. General Christopher Cavoli, commander of the United States European Command. Cavoli also praised Poland's expanding role on NATO's eastern flank.
Will come to order
Speaking at a recent Senate hearing, General Cavoli stressed the United States' commitment to strengthen Ukraine's air capabilities. President Volodymyr Zelensky has already confirmed the arrival of new F-16s, signaling ongoing efforts to fortify the country's skies.
There are more F-16s prepared to be deployed in there. There are more pilots in the training pipeline, sir. I can give you the numbers in closed session. They are active. The planes are active, and they fly every day. They have defeated a large number of cruise missile threats, and they've delivered an awful lot of offensive attacks as well, specifically bombing attacks in the east.
While the majority of F-16s for Ukraine have come from northern European nations, including the Netherlands, Denmark and Norway, the arrival of more US-trained pilots and jets could fundamentally bolster Kyiv capability against Russian missiles and frontline positions. General Cavoli also highlighted Warsaw's defense buildup, crediting Poland for its rising military spending and integration with the alliance.
Poland's at 4.7% of GDP, right? As a benchmark, we are at about 3.4%. So this is a country that has had very rapid economic growth, sustained over the last 15 years, and is committing it to correct an imbalance in their defensive capability.
Further in his testimony, he highlighted how Warsaw has rapidly modernized its forces.
They're buying vast quantities of US equipment, by the way. But more important, they're integrating it with the alliance and they're making it available to the alliance for collective defense, which is fantastic. They are rapidly becoming the bulwark of our ground defenses on the eastern flank.
General Cavoli, who assumed his post in July 2022, remains focused on reinforcing NATO's deterrence capabilities, though he has indicated plans for retirement in the near future. For now, Ukraine's incoming F-16s and Poland's surge in military preparedness reflect a broader pivot in the region, as NATO allies brace for evolving security challenges on Europe's eastern doorstep.
Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski says that US President Donald Trump has reassured NATO leaders of America's continued commitment to Article 5. Sikorski added that Trump will also attend the NATO summit set to take place this June in The Hague.
It's good that the new US government has realized that allies are an asset and not a burden, as they were an asset, and I said that during my talks, when for the first time, and thank God, so far for the last time, the alliance had invoked Article 5 of the NATO treaty, which was for the benefit of the United States. We, as Poland, had no national interest in Afghanistan. We responded out of friendship and solidarity as an ally towards the United States. Yes, President Trump confirmed to other leaders that it still applies. And from what we have heard, President Trump will be present at the NATO summit in The Hague.
NATO foreign ministers have wrapped up 2 days of meetings in Brussels. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio's participation went more smoothly than expected. Alex Cadier for TVP World followed the events at the NATO headquarters.
Well, there was a degree of nervousness at the beginning of this meeting. How would Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, approach his European allies? Would it be similar to what we saw from the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth just a few months ago, who went around the room and reminded every single NATO ally that they had to spend more on defense? Well, Marco Rubio taking a slightly more diplomatic approach. We understand that he was more constructive in his approach. Of course, he reminded European partners that they have to spend more on defense. That has been the Trump administration's policy even back in 2016. We know that there was a little bit of a jokey exchange as well between the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot and Marco Rubio, the French minister thanking him for helping European allies to reach their percentage of GDP targets by crashing the world economy. We understand Secretary Rubio just said, "You're welcome." Now, a little bit of levity in that moment, but nevertheless, very serious topics. We heard from Mark Rutte about Europe's commitment and NATO's commitment to supporting Ukraine, still at center stage here at NATO, but putting pressure on those European allies, some of which have not hit the 2% target of GDP, to spend more on defense and do so quickly. Alex Cadier, TVP World, at NATO HQ in Brussels.
We face a highly uncertain outlook with elevated risks of both higher unemployment and higher inflation, said Jerome Powell, chair of the US Federal Reserve. He added that while the full impact is still uncertain, Donald Trump's tariffs will likely have a much greater effect on the US economy than anticipated.
While uncertainty is high and downside risks have risen, the economy is still in a good place. The incoming data show solid growth, a labor market in balance, and inflation running much closer to, but still above, our 2% objective. Looking ahead, higher tariffs will be working their way through our economy and are likely to raise inflation in coming quarters. Reflecting this, both survey and market-based measures of near-term inflation expectations have moved up. By most measures, longer-term inflation expectations, those beyond just the next few years, remain well anchored and consistent with our 2% inflation goal. Turning to monetary policy, we face a highly uncertain outlook with elevated risks of both higher unemployment and higher inflation. While uncertainty remains elevated, it is now becoming clear that tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected. And the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth.
The United States is turning away from the global order it has created itself, said Marcin Zaborowski on TVP World's weekly program Face to Face on Friday. This turning away now includes both security and trade. The full interview is available online, either on YouTube or on our website at tvpworld.com.
Today, we have for the first time the situation since the end of the Second World War that the United States is essentially turning against the system that it created. And that is new and, frankly speaking, rather unpredictable, because much will depend on how we and the other countries will respond to the American hikes in tariffs, whether we are entering the trade war or whether we will wait and see.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has a message for migrants planning to reach Europe via Poland. The Polish border is airtight. That's the message of an upcoming information campaign set to launch in 7 countries that are the main source of illegal migrants to Poland.
Soon, we will begin an information campaign in the 7 countries with the largest number of migrants who are trying to illegally cross the Polish border. Our message will be clear. The Polish border is airtight. Do not believe the smugglers. Don't believe Alexander Lukashenko or Vladimir Putin. They're lying to you when they say that this is the entry point into Europe. This is untrue. You will not be able to apply for asylum here, and you will not be able to cross the border illegally. Thousands of soldiers, border guards, policemen, cameras and drones keep watch over every meter of the border 24 hours a day.
Demonstrations in South Korea were seen celebrating a decision by the country's constitutional court to uphold the impeachment of ousted President Yoon Suk-yeol. Thousands of people took to the streets of Seoul celebrating the Constitutional Court's decision to uphold the impeachment of ousted President Yoon Suk-yeol. Crowds gathered near city halls, singing along to live bands and cheering on speeches at a nighttime rally. Yoon was ousted from his post as president after declaring martial law and deploying troops to parliament, claiming to be combating political deadlock and what he called anti-state forces, sympathetic to North Korea. U.S. President Donald Trump will not attend the dignified transfer of bodies of the 4 American soldiers who lost their lives during a training exercise in Lithuania. While the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth attended the wake for the soldiers in Delaware, President Trump chose to visit his golfing course in Florida instead. The funeral ceremony in Vilnius, commemorating the 4 soldiers who tragically perished during a military exercise in Lithuania, was attended by the country's President Gitanas Nausėda. The 4 American soldiers were found in an M88 Hercules vehicle after a nearly week-long search and rescue operation. The crew tragically drowned after accidentally driving into a swamp during an exercise. And that brings us to the end of this news bulletin, but we will be back on the hour, so see you then. Bye-bye.